Willard is going to introduce our program today, and thank you so much for your sponsorship.
You're welcome for that, and I appreciate the introduction, of course. I have a few things to say. Chris, I'm glad you mentioned Giving USA and the annual update on philanthropy in America, which is a much anticipated, much analyzed set of data about where philanthropy is coming from and what the trends are and the shifts in the business. And for us, opportunities and challenges to work with prospects and donors. You know that the numbers for philanthropy go back to the Great Recession. It's the first time in our history, back in 07, 08, when we actually saw a dip in philanthropy. Many of us, and I have been in this business for decades, many of us believed that philanthropy was immune to economic forces and change. It turns out we're wrong on that point at that time, because philanthropy at high levels halted in 09 and 10. It was March of 2010 before we saw multi-million-dollar pledges occur again. We had about a 14-month drought. And for that to happen in the United States with the extraordinary wealth that is accumulated in private homes was shocking, and it was almost like the banking crisis and everything else. Many of us were looking at the crisis in philanthropy. But since March 2010, the upswing, the trend in philanthropy has been so positive, we'd like to think it will continue forever. We do not have the figures yet from Giving USA. They come out soon, and Martin Lundy is part of that team that works on the numbers. But anticipate it's going to be over $400 billion. Now, who's going to tell me where the majority of those gifts come from? They come from individuals. I didn't hear you. Individuals. They have always been, in this country, the largest, greatest source of philanthropy. And that is for several reasons. Individuals give. It's individuals and families that give. And there are many ways of giving. Direct gifts, there are family foundations. But there's something else happening that we need to take a look at. Donor-advised funds. Are any of you working directly with donors who give through DAFs? The phenomenal growth in DAFs will probably, it's actually already exceeded the total assets of independent foundations. That happened 2 years ago. We predict that will be over 100 billion in DAFs. What's interesting to me is that many looked at this financial instrument and said, you know, because it's less regulated than family foundations, it's never quite going to perform and impact our organizations, the charitable organizations. It turns out that in the last 2 years, DAFs are actually distributing 20% of assets. 20% of assets. Do you know what the minimum is for a family foundation? It's 5%. We are looking at the greatest opportunity for giving, and it is individual giving, because donor-advised funds are like family foundations. They're actually managed, influenced, directed by living donors and their heirs. So keep this in mind. When there's something on the table here from Martin Lundy. We work with the Lilly Family School of Philanthropy, Indiana University, on doing a philanthropy or philanthropic outlook every year. And we do it in 2-year, tranches. The one that was done for 2017 and 2018, and these are all available online. We do this for the good of the profession. We've been very optimistic. Always philanthropy is outpacing gross domestic product, and there are a number of complicated reasons for it that you don't have to read, actually. Just know that philanthropy is alive and well and doing very well. But something happened last fall. You remember the 2017, the Tax Recovery and Jobs Act passed. And are any of you aware or received messages about the kind of negative impact this would have on philanthropy? That was a general reaction in our profession. So Martin Lundy and the Lay School, for reasons that personally I didn't quite agree with, but skip that, published a reduction in our forecast, still outpacing all forecasts for economic growth in the U.S. I am more optimistic about philanthropy, particularly from individual giving, and that is primarily our subject today, the goals of this workshop. But the reasons for it have to be the donor-advised funds and family foundations that already are set up as a massive endowment for future giving, gifts and grants to our organizations. There's also a report over here on mega gifts, just out from Martin Lundy. And this is, we have such large gifts happening across all sectors. 75% of $10 million plus gifts go to higher education. Now, we have two attendees today from universities. ASU is represented. A.T. Still University is represented. The rest of us are in sectors of arts, culture, environment, social service, and human and public benefit activities. So do not be distracted by all the attention given to growth in the total pool of philanthropy. And don't grieve that you are not lined up for gifts of 10 million to 100 million this year. May it come soon. Most of us are working in ranges of giving from $5,000 to $500,000. And those are transformational gifts for our organizations. But it's interesting that big gifts attract attention, they get a lot of press, they have huge impact on the institutions. But unless you are in the favored zip codes of wealth and have historic access to some of those high net worth families, pay attention to the realistic market for your organization.